dedicate this talk to Alex Gasson and his partner Hannah, who are unfortunately no longer with us, have gone to another place, but they embodied a lot of what I'm going to talk about tonight. What I'm going to talk about tonight is designing agency, and I'll get into a little bit about what that means, but first, hello. And thank you for being here. And thank you to Stephen for having me, to Anne and the team here for hosting us, and all of you for being here. So this is kind of a dark slide to start with, but this is kind of where I started in terms of my view of the world. It felt like everything was crumbling around me, and this was about where we were going to end up in a few years or so. When I left college and came to San Francisco, climate change, war, all kinds of challenges that the world was going through, and I think all of us sort of have to stare into this type of image that's somewhere in our heads every day, and then push past it and work hard and create what we can. And so my career started off kind of with this question, or it evolved with this question: do I make the most and best things that I can to address these issues, or do I help others make more and better things to address these issues? And they're different skill sets, and I love doing both of them. So it felt really hard for me to make a decision. But I learned over the years that I was pretty good at dancing and less good at making things, even though it was really fun. So I decided to work with others and focus on what enables people to make the most things, the best things that they can, and really draw out their own talents and creativities. And fortunately, we have someone who's absolutely ridiculously amazing at things coming immediately after me, so look forward to John's talk. So what I do is design creative pathways for cities and people to engage more meaningfully with each other. When I started off in planning, I started off here at San Francisco at Urban Planning Firm, and I just became really disheartened with the process of specifically the way that the planning process engaged communities and engaged people in the conversation about what the future of their city could be, which to me was one of the most exciting and should be inspiring undertakings that we can do as a species. Essentially, is plan the places that we're going to live and plan the futures of them. And it was, in my experience, the complete opposite of that, the experience that people were actually going through. So I worked at a planning firm. I left there after a while, went to work in the arts, creating projects myself. Again, found out that wasn't necessarily my strong suit. Became an organizer, worked in government, and through all of that, my goal was to reimagine the relationship between people and their city. And I'm going to do a quick audience poll. How many of you would say that you're 100% satisfied with the way that you engage with your city today? Okay. Not seeing that many hands. Okay. How many say there could be maybe room for improvement? Okay. More hands. Okay. So I've created an artistic collage about what the process generally looks like right now. I think I Googled something like frustration with the process, or with government, I can't remember, government health, something like that. And there was a million images that came up with people just ripping their hair out. And so, but no, to ground it a little bit more seriously, I think, Maya Angelou, this is one of my favorite quotes of hers among many, but she learned that people forget what you said and what you did, but they won't forget how you make them feel. And I think, when most people think about government and the way it makes them feel, it's not the ideal situation. We're not making people feel loved or welcome or heard or cared for or inspired, which is, I think, what the role of government can be. And right now it's generally a process that is exclusive. It doesn't include everyone. It's dismissive of people. It's opaque, it's rigid, it's stagnant. At least that's the perception, and that's a lot of the reality. And so I started thinking about how could we change the status quo to be inclusive, receptive, transparent, changeable, and active, essentially the opposite of all of those 5 characteristics that I had seen. And so I started thinking about agency and what that means. What do you guys think agency means?
I come from a game design background, and how we define agency is basically free will.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think if we think about, the reason I put American flags here is, I think if you think about today's world, and our country, especially today, it doesn't feel like we have a strong sense of agency. It doesn't feel like our free will has much to do with how decisions are made. So this is basically how agency works. Just let that sink in for a little bit. It's a pretty deep philosophical graphic. So how many of you guys would say that generally speaking, in your ability to influence your environment, your city, your state, your neighborhood, your country, how many of you think you're on the top step with whatever change you would like to see? Like you're that super stoked person jumping and clicking your heels in the air. Okay. Maybe like, how about one step down, maybe 2 steps down? 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So I like to define agency as the capacity to act. And when I think about designing agency, I think about the definition of design that I use, which, this isn't like an English class, but I think the language is important. The art of realizing an idea into a plan. I sort of like hodgepodge that together from a bunch of different dictionary definitions. And so how I think about the design of agency is the art of realizing ideas that create the capacity to act into plans, which is a long way of saying helping other people act in the things that are important to them. And so you think about all the reasons why are we on those bottom steps, why are we not higher up the ladder? There's all kinds of barriers, but essentially you think about, what are the barriers of you being higher than you are? Maybe you don't want to do it, maybe you don't know how to do it, maybe you don't have an excuse or a way to try, or the time or the resources. And so as I went through, like, how do I empower people? How do we get people to act in the most empowering way possible? I just kept coming across these 6 barriers to agency, which essentially match up to that diagram, which I really like, as this like stick guy that really explains pretty much everything about the way the world works. And so you have to be inspired to act. You have to believe that you can do it. You have to be motivated to do it. You have to have the tools that you need, the support, and a platform, like an excuse to get out there and make something happen and make a difference. And right now, most of our platforms for acting and for making a difference look something like the picture on the left. And I'm hoping they start to look a little bit more like the picture on the right. Which is rather than watching a guy at the front of a room talk about some stuff that you don't really understand, you pick up a hammer and a drill and you do it yourself. And so that's kind of one of the philosophies that a lot of my work is based on. So I come back to this, like, what does this actually mean? So we'll talk about some projects. For several years, I worked at Gray Area, just down the street, a fantastic organization that I recommend you all visit. And we were really trying to figure out how do we transform from an art and technology organization, which is the core mission statement and focus of Gray Area, into a platform for engagement, and how can we use tools and creativity of technology and of art and design to actually change cities. And so one of the first projects that I worked on was called Summer of Smart, and it was pretty wonderful. It was in the summer of 2011. There was a mayoral race, the last 2 elections ago, I guess, for mayor, and there were 16 candidates running in San Francisco. Just saying that anywhere else in the country, everybody's like, "What are you talking about? Is that even legal?" And so, we just came up with this kind of crazy idea. We had run hackathons before, and I had been a part of them. And we started organizing them and saying, okay, what if we actually connected these hackathons to the mayoral process? So this is David Chu, who's the Board of Supervisors chair at the time. He was running for mayor. And we had all the candidates come out to these events, and we said, hey, we're going to create stuff, and we want to know how you would use it. This was If you're familiar with the work of Code for America, I was kind of right as that was getting off the ground, and kind of civic technology was becoming a thing. In any case, we had 16 candidates get up on a stage and listen to all of the teams, the winners of the hackathons that we put together, actually presented solutions to them. This was actually immediately after the first YouTube presidential debate had happened, which was the first time that people had the opportunity to ask real questions. Anyone could ask a question from anywhere in the country directly of candidates instead of a moderator doing all of that. And so we went one step further a few years later and said, actually, this is the first time we think in the history of electoral politics where citizens had the audience of all of the candidates and presented their own ideas, not just questions, but here's what we're doing, how will you support it, and essentially put them on the spot. Some of them kind of fidgeted in their seats a little bit, but a lot of them were really responsive, and we had a great dialogue about it. After that, we worked on a project called Creative Currency, and you see a theme here, like just keep those questions and themes of agency in mind as I talk about some of these things. But also think about the design of the models for engagement. So really my role is to figure out, okay, how do all these pieces connect? How do the participants, the different sectors, connect with each other? In this case, we wanted to, again, apply this model of hackathons to actually like community development and some of the issues that were going on in our own neighborhood of the Tenderloin. And we brought a bunch of these and turned it into a really beautiful space for people, but how can we do, what else is there? And so we created a festival, which is building on a lot of the work that Gray Area had done around arts festival and design festivals that related and addressed the city. And basically spent a day, had a whole day where we took over about 5 blocks of Soma and said we're going to invite 20 different teams to put their vision for how projects that can improve this space, and it was everything from interactive art installations to this one, which was called Fruit Fence, hanging lemon trees on a chain link fence, and they had sensors in it that told you when to water them, things like that, and it just got really, really creative. And we kind of defined it as a block party for the planning process. So instead of just having 600 people at a public meeting, kind of listening, you could actually again get out there with like a hammer and a drill, and it's really successful. We got really excited about it. We turned a giant tunnel into a sod-filled dance party. That was pretty great. So we had 5,000 people come, we had 40 performers, 23 projects. These are some of the before and after pictures of the spaces. So you can kind of start to see when you put these like glasses on of, hey, actually, I can do this, I have the tools, I have the support, I have the motivation, I have a platform, this is what comes out. And we found that all this was just lying under the surface of so many people that wanted to give back like yourselves and didn't have any one of those things. Because if you don't have any one of those things, the whole thing falls apart, right? If you don't have the support, if you don't have tools, if you don't have a platform, if you don't have inspiration. So we became really focused on providing as many of those things as we could. Some really interesting projects came out of it. This one was by George Desiatis, who's an amazing artist, and one of his first projects in public space. Now he's working on a 2-mile light installation on Market Street called Light Rail, which you should all learn about and support at lightrail.org. But this project, he made a pulsing heart where you grab the handles and it played an electronic music soundtrack based on your heartbeat and kept the pulse data so that the city health department could actually learn something about it. So it's that kind of thinking where if you put an RFP out and said, hey, we want to encourage people to exercise, or hey, we want an interactive thing on the street, you wouldn't necessarily get something like this. But if you leave it very open-ended, people are just amazing. There was pop-up stages for musicians. This was an interactive movie theater where you could essentially walk up and be with your friends, watch YouTube videos like you're on your couch, but 20 feet tall in an alley. People liked it. And just amazing things came out of it. The city of San Francisco and Yerba Buena Center for the Arts essentially adopted the model, and now it's in at least 9 cities and counting, which is pretty inspiring. So if you get all these pieces together, especially here in San Francisco with this critical mass of incredible people like yourselves, you know, a lot of cities are looking for those kind of models and those tools. They see that this can be done better, but they don't know exactly how. And I really wanted to understand, like, what are these barriers from the inside perspective, like from government's perspective? Why isn't this already happening? What are the barriers, and from a policy perspective, from a legal perspective? So I went and did a fellowship for a year in the Mayor's Office of Civic Innovation, and it had just started up at the time, maybe about a year or two old in Mayor Lee's administration, and got to work on some amazing projects, kind of under this lens of how can policy empower people. And I kind of knew when I went in that I was going to be a mole in a way that would you know, learn what I could as much as I could, and see how much that I could learn from being in government, and then, you know, bring it back out to people however I could, whether that was as a city official or somewhere on the outside. So I learned about even more needs that people had around agency, and even more barriers to agency, from, you know, permits to funding to tools to workspace. We worked on a project called Living Innovation Zones, which is still in progress today. And these are new types of spaces for these types of projects, interactive installations that address some kind of community need. And it's essentially a new type of permit, a new program that the city brings together community partners and artists and designers. This was the first one, which you might recognize from Market Street, that the Exploratorium did an amazing job designing. And it's really interesting because just with the number of people that passed by it on Market Street, with the existing pedestrian traffic that was already there, people would see it 7 million times per year. So you think about the opportunity that exists on every street corner in every city, just based on how many people are there every day, the impact starts to grow really, really quickly. And building any one of these types of projects is kind of like community barn raising. It takes a ton of work, it takes a ton of, you know, back-end work. I think 75 people touched this project before it hit the street, from, you know, legislation, you know, policy people to, you know, people with laser jets and everything like that. And that's what it looked like. So, what do I do now? I did start making things again. I kind of missed it. So now I do design work. I design websites for city agencies. So we start, you know, turning things that look like this and don't really necessarily tell the story of, in this case, San Francisco Public Works, who had about you know, billions of dollars of real, physical, beautiful assets all over the city that they're responsible for, and no one was really getting that from their website. So we, you know, turned it into something a little more visual. So you get the sense that, like, again, just the way that the government, or the way that a city expresses itself comes through, you know, online, in person, really everywhere that you might have a touch point, which is pretty much everywhere if you're living in a city, even when you're in your house. You know, there's Department of Building Inspector, there's all kinds of departments that, you know, make our lives possible every day. And usually they're not designed, or designing to be inspiring and to promote agency. And then last year I started a nonprofit called Our City that essentially takes my mission and turns it into an organization with my co-founder, Ray. And what's really exciting about that is just the ability to make something that's bigger than ourselves. It's the first time I've started anything. It's been a total journey. And we've gotten to work with all kinds of people in our first year to really fulfill on that vision. And one of the projects that we worked with here in San Francisco that you might have heard about was called Larkin Street Lighting. And again, thinking about these models of agency and differentiating what's possible from the existing process, we really took the opportunity to re-examine what an RFP was, or a call for public art. In this case, they said, okay, we know we want something based in light, and we want it to be on Larkin Street. And that's pretty much what we started with, and it turned into something that was extremely participatory, something that got community feedback, incorporated at every stage of the process, and incorporated elements of prototyping and all kinds of other stuff. So you can read about it a little bit more online. And then these were some of the projects that got created out of our first event in Oakland in February, which again, just like really designed to change the way that people see their city, see their spaces. and see themselves within that context. So, back to our friend here. You know, I'm kind of making all this up as I go along, right? Like, I made up this job description, and it's like, I don't know. I think this is what I want to do with my life, but I don't really know what it looks like yet. And so far, it's going pretty well. A lot of people are resonating with this idea that things can be done differently and done better, and that art and design need to have a voice in these types of processes. That there's just such a lack of inspiration, such a lack of creativity that actually draws meaning out of the space. People find meaning and find connection in authentic creative engagement. And so what I'll leave you with is that I really believe cities and people are at their best when they're meaningfully engaged with each other. And I hope that all you guys take away something to do your part to make that happen. So